Alrighty, so we are here with Sonia Thompson. Welcome those who are listening to the Pre-Launch Profit podcast. Sonia Thompson, how are you?
I am good. How are you? Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. I am so excited to have Sonia on this call because she is absolutely crushing it in the digital marketing space, in the consulting space, in the everything space. And she was doing amazing things right now. And I highly recommend that you check out her stuff later on. But Sonia, I just want to dive into what you're doing currently right now. I want to go into like some case studies later on. I want to go into everything that you're doing to crush out the entrepreneurial vision. But let's first just start out with you. Go ahead and give a couple explanations about who you are, what you like to do, but more of like your passions of what you're currently doing right now to change the world.
Sure. So I run Try Business School, and for the past five and a half years, I've been working to help entrepreneurs make life better for the people that they serve. So primarily that has been through training and education, coaching, consulting on content marketing specifically, helping them build their content marketing strategy, generate leads, convert those leads so they can get a massive audience of raving fans. So that's been my goal. That's been the thing that I've been working for over the last few years.
Cool. So working with mainly entrepreneurs, so you probably have like the coaching, you have the courses, you got all that stuff, right?
Yeah. So definitely I've got a course, I've got a coaching program, and a few done-for-you services that I put together. And over the last 6 months or so, I've been pivoting to actually extend this offering to corporations because, sometimes you think that big companies, they've got these big agencies that they pay, they've got these teams, they've got all this money, and you think that they're pretty straight in terms of what they're doing from a digital marketing standpoint. And actually, that's not always the case. They might have a lot more resources, but a lot of times, and I know that I can say this because I used to work for a big company. Before I became an entrepreneur, I worked for Johnson & Johnson for 9 years in marketing. So the thing about it is whenever I left and became an entrepreneur, I was like, oh gosh, what is it that I know how to do? I was in marketing, I had climbed the ladder, I had a really great position there. I was managing a team of people, I was managing my agencies. But the thing is, you are doing a lot of strategizing, professional development for your team and all the other kind of stuff, but you're not actually doing any of those specific skills. I wasn't a digital marketing expert. I wasn't a expert on very specific things. I knew how to do all the key tasks and the core functions. I knew how to direct my team. I knew how to manage a brand, but could I do copywriting? No, we paid our agency to do that. Did I know about digital marketing? No, we paid our agency to do that, and they educated us on the things that we needed to know so we can talk enough, just a little bit enough about it to other people to know, like, is this working? Is this not? So whenever it came time for me to figure out what I needed to do for my own business and how I was gonna, get all these things done, I was like, oh crap, like I don't know how to do any of this stuff. Right. And I hadn't necessarily, we're trained more so in the corporate world to be generalists, which is great when you're looking at a big picture view, and it's great for me now as a strategist. But when it comes down to very specific skills that people are thinking about what they need to do, that's not something that's a core skill for people who are working in these big companies. And so going back to the original point of this, because of the way these big companies work and how people progress in their careers, when it comes to digital marketing and it comes to the culture that exists in some of these companies, they tend to be much more conservative. They're not quite as up to speed and in the trenches as entrepreneurs are when it comes to doing all this stuff on a day-to-day basis. So whenever you're working with a big company, you're educating them, and then their agency is going to go and do and execute the work. When you're talking to the same entrepreneurs and going through the same processes, they might actually be the ones who are going to do the work. So it's slightly different, but really all the same core principles.
Cool. I love how you said that you think all of these large businesses, all these large corporations, all of these, Fortune 500 companies, right? You would think that they would have something under their belt that is running their digital marketing platform, right? But that's pretty much never the case because they are really good at the two things, right? Systems, processes, but they don't know how to scale. A lot of them are tapped because the market simply just doesn't need it. They don't have any more upsells or downsells or whatnot, but literally today is changing so fast that it's only going to change faster tomorrow. And so I love how you said that businesses, like right now, what you're doing, Sonia, you are literally probably 20 to 30 years ahead of the game with all of the knowledge that you have right up here, which is so cool. Like, keep up the good work that you're doing. I love watching, you know, all your posts and everything that you have going on. So keep up that. And for our listeners, very important that they take this in, because what they're doing right now will only affect them for the benefit, for the positive later on down the road. So I know you've done, you know, Johnson & Johnson. You were there forever, which is so cool that you had that corporate experience in the marketing realm. But what else were you doing at that time? What made you decide to branch out onto your own journey instead of continuing, you know, the day-to-day grind at other businesses or corporations?
Right. So I always knew from teenager, early adolescence, that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I actually wanted to own my own marketing agency. So it's kind of cool, like in a roundabout way, that I've kind of done a little bit of that now. But whenever I went to college and I went through an MBA program, which started basically our undergrad and MBA program was all together. So it was all combined. So they taught us to be, and I love my school, love the program. I wouldn't be sitting here today if I didn't go through that program. But they taught us to be great employees, not entrepreneurs. Exactly. So whenever I started my job at J&J, I was in a management development program. My very first year, I knew, oh, corporate America is not for me. Like this corporate life is not the business. But I stayed 8 more years, right? And even though I stayed the 8 years, because they kind of keep dangling all these carrots in front of you. They keep telling you and giving you all these great stuff. So at first I was like, well, I'll just wait until I get promoted to manager. Then I got promoted to manager. And then I was like, oh, I'll wait until I get an office. And I got an office. And I'm like, oh, wait, I'll wait until I, get promoted to director. I got promoted to director. Oh, wait, I just want to manage people. Started managing people. And I was just like, realizing that you're putting your dream on hold because of fear. So at the end of the day, I was like, this is something that I've dreamed about for far too long. And I've let everyone else sort of dictate what was best for me in my life. And I needed to go with what felt right and what felt best for me, which was to actually branch out on my own, which is what I had wanted to do all along.
Cool. So, well, no, go. If you have more, go for it.
No, I was going to say, so even though I knew the first year that I didn't want to stay in corporate America, what I did do over the course of the rest of the time, I did write a business book, which was about taking the principles of marketing and running a business that you learned in business school. So the theory, taking the principles that these big companies use, which are the same, and taking them and extracting them and then putting it in a book that would be useful for business owners who might not have that same background and experience.
Gotcha. That's so important too. Like with you being able to be in such a position for like a length of time, it's really cool that you now have that experience and that other corporations or businesses or whoever, like Johnson & Johnson, they're a big business. So it's cool having that experience, even though it technically wasn't what you wanted to do. I used to deliver, right? I used to deliver Office Depot boxes to all these businesses all the time. And I hated it. I really hated it because I was not doing what I wanted to do. And my thing was digital marketing, was making sales, was closing clients and everything. And so I would get so upset. I would bottle all of this anger inside of me. And I was just, I was not fun to be around. And so I finally had to learn to cool myself down, to allow myself to be patient, and then allow things to happen, but still put my nose to the grindstone and get stuff done. So major props to you. So now that we've talked about like all these cool things that you've done, I like money, I like results, and I like case studies. So you can say 1, you can say 3, but I want to know at least 1 to 2 different case studies where you were able to go from here and take either yourself or someone else to here. And I want to know everything, like the logistics behind it, what you did, the money spent, the money earned or gained. And then let's just dive into those details right now.
Sure. So let's talk about a case study that's not fully completed. Well, okay. You want to know all the money, all the details, or is it just something that we can I talk in generalities?
What? You know what? It's your story. You go for it.
Okay. It's not actually completed yet. You and I were talking about this before because I mentioned I'm transitioning into consulting.
Okay.
I just want to go through the bit of the process and to give people more of an idea of how long something might take. And strategically, you might want something to happen like that, but it doesn't always go that way, right? So
Sure.
my journey to branching out into consulting. So if your listeners are liking baseball, if they're familiar with baseball, you know, with baseball, a lot of times, whenever you're working with smaller clients, whenever you are working with maybe a smaller ticket offer, think about it as like a base hit. You're getting these base hits, base hits, base hits. And these base hits are great because the base hits help you get runs. So you get enough base hits consecutively, you get runs, you put points on the board. With regards to consulting, you're actually going for a home run, you're going for a grand slam, and sometimes you're going for more. And that's the cool thing about this, maybe a difference between baseball and business. I got this from Jeff Bezos from Amazon.
Okay.
Whenever you're taking the risks for in business and baseball, the biggest thing that you can get, the most you can get is 4 runs through a grand slam. That's like a big deal. But when business, whenever you're able to hit, you're able to get more, exponentially more, whenever you get like a big major win. So in my mind, I view consulting as the grand slam plus, where you're not limited to those 4 runs whenever you are going to be able to get those exponential returns that make everything that you did beforehand worth the effort.
Cool.
Okay? So that's the backdrop. So as I was mentioning, I've been transitioning into doing consulting, but my process of doing that actually started 2 years ago. So I worked with a coach, and we identified that a great strategy to get me to the point to where ultimately I'll start to have organic offers coming in for consulting work that I needed to write for these large publications.
Okay,
so
cool.
What I needed to do, so we started with a plan. His name is Kamanzi Constable. He is fantastic to work with. But we started first, I got into Huffington Post. Then we worked and I got into Success. Then I got a column in Inc. magazine. So I just finished writing for my full year for Inc.com. So that's been fantastic. It's been amazing. It's wonderful. But what these things do is they elevate your profile. Overall, as you're able to put your thoughts out there, and sort of get your philosophy in place, it just adds more credibility and social proof that you do know what you're doing. And then this year I got into Entrepreneur. So I'm able to contribute to Entrepreneur as well. So now, as I kind of laid that foundation, continuing to build up my expertise, now this year I started pitching these companies. Ultimately, the goal is to get those organic opportunities to come in. But I started pitching these companies, a combination of pitching them cold, as well as reaching out to my contacts and my colleagues who still work in some of these companies. Because remember, I left about 5 years ago working with J&J. So I was pretty in a good position whenever I left. But now my friends who are still working in industry, they're even higher, right? So just reaching out, networking, reconnecting with people, digging deeper. So I made contact with a friend who I've been working with over the years. And we've been talking over the past 6 months or so. I came in, they brought me in to participate in a live workshop they had. They paid me an honoraria. They flew me in to participate. From there, I set up some meetings with him, his team, to kind of sort of get more insight into what it is that they're doing after having made a very good impression at that workshop. So it's like baby steps, baby steps. And now they've just verbally accepted a proposal, again, that will be that Grand Slam plus for me. And it's the key lesson that I want you to remember is the process started 2 years ago. And if you want to even go further back, maybe that process started 9 years ago, even 9 years before that, or whenever I was working my corporate job, because those types of things, you build those connections and then something comes back later on. So always add value. Don't be afraid of playing the long-term game, because but continue to hit those base hits along the way until that Grand Slam, home run, Grand Slam plus hits for you.
Cool.
It'll come if you don't give up.
Holy smokes. That was so much. And I love what you're saying. Like, like it started 9 years ago, and whether you knew it or not, you were still working in the corporate setting. Then you branched out, you're doing your own thing. But yeah, like it's strategic to go for base runs. It's strategic to go for bunts. It's strategic to obviously go for grand slams. And it, it just depends on what you're doing. Cause maybe your grand slam, the catcher might catch it.
Right.
Like maybe it doesn't go far enough, right? So I love it. I love the insight. I love the passion and everything that you're doing. And I really do look forward to seeing where you will go here in the near future. So I just
one other thing on that. So
go for it,
just to show how it continues to build up. The writing, because one of my friends asked me, oh, okay, so once you start booking more consulting gigs, you can stop writing. No, writing is always a part of it. It's my marketing. It's how I build my reputation and get that out there. But at the same time, you use kind of like a ladder strategy. You get one company, and if it's a great name, then you leverage that name and the good work that you've done for them to book the next company, on and on and on and on and on. Everything is connected. Although things might seem in isolation, they are not.
Exactly. Cool. And then I think I didn't know this before I started, writing for all these large publications. But the cool thing is about like Inc. and all of these other ones, not only are people seeing your stuff organically, when then you can get, consulting gigs, coaching gigs, whatnot, but also these publications, don't they pay you, right? They pay you like Inc.
Some of them do. Some of them do. So depending upon how many articles you contribute for them a month, they will pay you. Because I think some columnists are on a paid agreement, some of them are not. So they'll pay you based upon page views if you are on one of those agreements. Okay, cool. You have to. It's generally not enough to make you say I'm going to make a living from this, but it is something that kind of. It's like goodwill, good faith,
Cool. Well, maybe it all adds up later on. Like from what I was hearing, you can earn anywhere from $3,000 to $6,000 per month for writing for some of these publications, right?
You can if you get a large number of page views, and that takes time. Interesting little tidbit. I was in New York last week, and because I was in New York, the Inc. offices are in New York. Right. And I stopped by and I met my editors. So it was great to build a relationship, meet them in person. So my editors are walking me around the office, and they introduced me to the editor-in-chief of Inc. And she's like, you're one of our new columnists, right? And I said, well, I've been writing for you guys for a little bit over a year. She's like, yeah, you're still a new columnist.
Oh, no way.
Because they have columnists who've been writing for them 3, 4, 10 years even. So what they were telling me is that it takes longer than people think to build up a following. So yes, you can get to the point to where you're earning $6,000 a month, because again, it compounds. There's no limit to your articles and the page views. However, the time it takes to build up a consistent audience of people who are looking for your work every time you publish takes time. So in my mind, I'm like, a year, like, wait, like a year, that's not enough time? No. So that's just one of those things. And again, going back to the whole long-term strategy, this is a long-term game, but it pays many big dividends. You just got to stick to it and not feel like, oh, you're going to write 10 articles, they're all going to go viral, and then everybody's going to come beating down your door wanting to hire you. Maybe that can happen, but that's not the strategy that you should bank on.
Cool. I love it. Thank you so much for sharing that, Sonia. If we could end, I would like to end on a story. So like, I want you to tell us about what type of triumph that you've had, like your biggest struggle, biggest challenge ever. What was that thing? And then how did you overcome that hurdle, that obstacle, that challenge? How did you get over it?
The biggest challenge that I probably have experienced in my life, and it's happened 2 times actually, was I've had some health problems. So the first time it happened, I ended up in the hospital back in 2013 for 10 days. Of course, and then after that, my recovery period was a few months. So again, solopreneur, did not work in between there. And then I had another incident where I was in the hospital again late last year. And then over the course of days, and then of course you've got the recovery period after that. Sure. So for me, it was one, you've got to build a business that can run and that you can survive if you need to take some time off. Hopefully that time that I'm taking off is not because of a hospital visit or because I'm sick, but it's because I'm on vacation at the beach somewhere or doing whatever it is that I want. So that was a key lesson for me in terms of structuring my business in a way that I can still get stuff done and I can still operate even if I don't work for maybe a week at a time. But the bigger thing, or the bigger lesson learned, was for me was about managing stress. Stress isn't really good for anybody, but for me, it's my trigger. And if I have too much stress, I end up in a downward spiral. So I have learned that as an entrepreneur, I am the boss. If I am experiencing stress because of my job, that's my fault. And I need to make sure that I do the appropriate things to be able to manage it. I came to realize that all those 9 years working for J&J, I think I was in a constant state of stress. But that was something that I chose to do in terms of working for that company. I'm the boss now, so I can create this environment for myself to where I don't have that. So that means, most of the time I live in Buenos Aires and I've got, much more tranquilo life because I'm able to structure that for myself. Because I just feel a lot more peaceful there. I, make sure that I take the time to do the things that are important for me, like meditation and yoga and working out and time with friends and family and loved ones, because that keeps me in a state. And I think that a lot of times entrepreneurs feel like they've got to hustle hard and work all the time, and that the stress and all these things are just part of the process. It doesn't have to be. And if your health is not in good shape, like you've only got one body, and if your health is not in good working order, then none of that other stuff matters. So I would just encourage entrepreneurs to prioritize your health. And that includes like your physical body, your spiritual, mental well-being. That is something that has to be done on a daily basis, because entrepreneurship is grueling on your mind. Like, it's grueling, and it is the biggest mental, emotional battle that you will probably ever fight, right? So make sure that you prioritize both your mental and your physical health. Know that you are responsible for the environment that you create, and that if something isn't working for you, you're the boss, you can change it. So don't be afraid to do that.
Done deal. Thank you so much for sharing that story. And I know you gave a little bit of insight, kind of like some encouragement towards the end of that. But to sign off, is there any other advice that you'd like to say for the listeners who might be struggling, who might be in certain situations, who might be in the same exact situations that you were in or whatever? Do you have any parting guidance that you'd like to share before we end up closing?
Keep going. Don't give up. For my podcast, I've interviewed for my podcast and a couple of summits that I've had. I've interviewed more than 150 entrepreneurs, and I ask each one of them what are their keys to success. The number one key to success is perseverance. And you're going to get punched, you're going to get hit by a truck, you're going to get all these different things, you're going to get door slammed. It doesn't matter. As long as you keep going, get back up, find a better way to get to your goal. And it's okay even if your goal shifts a little bit, just keep going, because somebody is waiting for you to make life better for them. So don't keep them waiting.
I love it. Thank you. Okay, cool. For those of you who are listening to the Pre-Launch Profit podcast, I thank you so much for checking Pre-Launch Profit out. And then also Sonia Thompson for your wonderful interview, for all of your insight and everything that you were just giving, and for your experience. And we will close this, but I look forward to seeing you later on in the future, and looking forward to seeing more of your content, all of your gains, all of your wins, etc. So we will see you later.
All right.